members here. In fact, we have everybody here, so we're off to a good start. We have with us tonight from the zoning board, Bob Fitzgerald, Suzanne Murphy, Drew Delaney, and Mary Jane Coffey. So Jane Coffey, as we all know her as. Ashley, we've got you on the line, and that's great. So let's just start out. We're going to start out with the easy one first. Is somebody here for 103 Providence Highway LLC? Do we have somebody here? Okay, this is for the sign at the urgent care. If you can hear me, somebody wave.
So I touched base with Amy about this, and she says she hasn't heard anything from the applicant since your last meeting on this.
Dawn, I've gone by that a number of times. Yeah, I was led to believe that they needed to get that light situation so they can open June 1st. They are nowhere near ready to open. So I can't imagine that they'd be, looking for a sign at this point, because it's very much in a state of flux there. All kinds of activity in back, grass growing between the cracks. I mean, I don't know what's happening.
Okay, I saw the same thing, but I also saw that the sign was up in front. So, we'll come back to that. Maybe they'll join us later tonight. Okay. I thought that was going to be the easy one for tonight. Next one that we have on the list is we're going to just continue the 240Bs, so we might as well start with Wall Street Development, Dupuy Street.
John, I just have something to say on the Dupuy Street one, if that's okay, when we get there.
Okay, and does it have to do with the peer review?
Yes.
Okay, so I have two proposals for peer review for Dupuy Street, and one is from Davis Square Architects, and they give a range between $11,000 and $21,000, and actually I think you recommended $16,000 to be put for that.
That's what we did for Summer Street with Cliff's proposal. We just kind of cut it down the middle. And of course, any funds that aren't used for that will be refunded to the applicant.
Okay. So
I'm not agreeing to that.
You don't really have a choice in the matter, Lou. You don't have a choice.
I think I do have a voice in the matter.
You absolutely do not when it comes to peer review.
So if that's fine. You know what? We can put this off to the next meeting because the applicant, doesn't want to.
I haven't seen any peer review.
You don't get to.
Okay. The peer review works for the town of Walpole, paid for by you. So
well, the scope of the peer review is reviewable by the applicant.
Okay. So that's fine. We'll discuss this at the next ZBA meeting. So we can continue this one out. We were going to continue the whole case anyways, but we were trying to move this part along. But that's fine. You can you choose to continue it out. Okay, Ashley, what's available next for the zoning board's meeting?
So can I talk a little bit about where we're at with virtual versus in-person hearings?
Sure.
Okay, so I think it's fair to say that the board's taken the position that conducting public hearings through virtual means may in many cases inhibit the right of parties and interests to provide full and complete timely input that you need for your review of the project. And even sometimes eliminates the ability of some parties from participating at all in the process. So to the extent within your legal authority during this health emergency, you've been holding virtual hearings just to kind of continue things. But when it comes to taking on things requiring substantial testimony or submittals, we want to do that when we can get back into a hearing room. So we are hoping that as phase 3 rolls out towards the end of July, that we'll be able to have in-person hearings again. The goal is to have a virtual option available as well as the in-person, so that people who still want to stay at home can do so, but still participate in the public process. So that said, I think I've touched base, and it takes a lot of people to schedule these things. So I've touched base with our peer reviewers, with our town council. I'm still waiting to hear from Judy Barrett. I really hope that she can be there, but I'd suggest moving both 40Bs to July 27. And it will be at the high school auditorium, which we've reserved, and we'll lay the chairs out in a way where people can social distance as they need to.
Okay, that's very helpful. So could I have a motion to continue case number 0520 Wall Street Development Corp. Dupuy Street to July 27th at the Walpole High School Auditorium at 7 o'clock.
So moved.
Moved by Suzanne,
Second.
second by Jane. Any further discussion on that? Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? So carried. Okay.
John,
Yes, George.
hi, George Pucci. Sorry, I was a minute late. You just have to do it by roll call vote because you're on Zoom. Sorry about that.
Sure. Nope. Thanks for keeping us honest. Okay. Okay, roll call vote. Murphy.
Aye.
Jane Coffey.
Aye.
Drew Delaney.
Aye.
And Bob Fitzgerald. You,
Aye.
Bob. Okay. And John Lee, aye. Okay. Thank you. Unanimous vote to continue until the 27th, Walpole High School at 7 p.m. for Dupuy Street. Hopefully we'll be able to meet then. Okay, next one we have is 55 SS LLC. That is Summer Street comprehensive permit under 40B. And same thing, we're not going to take any substantive information tonight, but that also will be continued out until July 27th at the Walpole High School, 7 p.m.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Hale.
I would like to address the board.
Sure.
I sent you a letter dated June 11th, and I'd like it read into the record.
Okay, it'll be submitted into the record. I'm not going to sit here and read the whole thing, but it will be submitted into the file.
Have you read it?
Yes,
And the rest of the board have read it.
I don't speak for the board, but if it was sent to them, that's up to them. We're not going to take any substantive testimony tonight, and that was not the plan. We want to have
So the plan,
a public hearing.
yeah, so when at the last public hearing, I asked what you wanted to see tonight, and we had an extensive conversation about us showing the differences in the plan between the original plan and what we've recently submitted, and you said you would like that. So I have a team here tonight that's prepared to do that.
Okay. When we've got 32 people, was 33 people online, we're not going to take any information like that. We're going to continue this out until the 27th when we can all meet, hopefully in person at the high school auditorium.
And so, Mr. Chairman, if we can't meet in person, or if people don't want to meet in person, what have we accomplished by delaying?
We're not accomplishing anything, but we're trying to make sure that there's a fair public hearing on this. That's all this is about. So, okay, so you've submitted your letter to the board, and we're going to continue it out until the 27th. Okay, Mr. Pucci, any advice on that? Same thing, roll call vote?
Yes, correct. Right.
Okay. Could I have a motion to continue case number 0320 for 55 SS LLC to July 27th, Walpole High School Auditorium at 7 p.m.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, moved by Jane, second by Suzanne. Any further discussion from board members? Okay. Okay, this will be a roll call vote. Murphy,
Aye.
Drew Delaney,
Aye.
Bob Fitzgerald,
Aye.
Jane Coffey,
Aye.
and John Lee, aye. Okay, unanimous roll call vote. So that's continued out until the 27th. Next thing we have on the agenda is case number 0220. This is for 1363, 1391 Main Street special permit to the zoning board. So I know, is Saeed here?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, were you able to take a look at what the deputy fire chief sent to the zoning board?
Which one of the letters? Because we received one 5 or 6 days ago, and we made changes for that one.
Okay.
I don't think we received any other one, unless you got something different.
Okay, so we still have outstanding issues with the fire chief, as far as I know, and also with the town engineer. There's some engineering.
Yeah, they sent letters, I believe, yesterday and today, and it looks like they're all set with all the issues.
Okay.
I'm not sure if they forwarded them to you, but we did receive a response from the fire department. They're okay with our fire engine turnaround. We did some changes for them, and they're all set, and they okayed the changes. And Carl, the town engineer, sent a letter yesterday, I believe, saying that everything's all set.
Okay, I haven't seen those letters. What I saw was the letter stating that there was still issues with the fire engine turnaround. And, Ashley, do you have anything else to add on that?
So, Paul Berry, Deputy Fire Chief, sent out his, I think, original letter that he'd written. I think he just got back from vacation a couple days ago. And then he sent a follow-up letter dated June 17th. And it says that the plan and the apparatus turning analysis movement comply with the Massachusetts State Fire Code. He did have recommended language prohibiting parking and/or standing in the turnaround area. So that's important. Obviously, if the fire apparatus need to get down there to turn around, people shouldn't be parked there. And then he says, whenever possible, we prefer to see a turning option that does not require fire apparatus to back up. That being said, the proposed option does comply with 527 CMR 1. And Deputy Berry also says that the turn radius between the two peninsulas will require complete 100% snow removal, which is something that I think got brought up in previous hearings. So his updated letter says that the plans comply, but he recommends certain conditions to protect the access.
Okay. What about the town engineer? I thought there were still outstanding issues from that. That's what I understood from earlier today.
I don't have that letter.
Okay.
Wait, hold on. Yes, sorry, I do have it. So this letter is from Carl, our town engineer. It's dated June 16th. And he offers his comments. He says that the proposed civil and architectural design has been modified since the first submission to the board in January. The slopes of the driveways going into the underground parking and surface have been reduced as much as various interconnected parameters will allow. He says the current design is acceptable. He says, we understand the applicant has met with MassDOT District 5, and the plans now show entrance radius and configurations, which are a result of those meetings. And he's suggesting that the board consider requiring a DOT access permit for the proposed driveways as a condition of your approval. And then he has a few other, do you want me to keep going through?
Oh, I mean, I want to make sure that we have everything included so that when it comes time to close the hearing, that we can make sure that we have everything necessary to have a decision that's going to be good for the project and good for the town.
Sure. So Carl's got some great language that we definitely incorporate. He concludes that, in summary, we have no further issues other than those outlined with the board moving to approve this project. He's available for any questions.
John, I have some concerns about this. The last email that I got was June 10th. And it does state that he has concerns about turning in the wintertime. And I understand that. And it's, if possible, we would prefer to see a larger and safer turning. Then it goes on to say, State Fire Code turn analysis document is required to be stamped and signed. Do we have such a document? My concern here is, it seems to me in the past 2 or 3 concerns that we may have had with the fire department, we have not, in my mind, had a definitive, yes, this is safe, and no, it is not. I mean, I harken back to Burns Ave, different thing, not to digress, but the bottom line is, it's always, well, we recommend. I would like to see in my hands, to read for myself, the latest letter that came from Paul Barry. And I'd also like to see and be able to read myself, not necessarily online here, what comes from the town engineer. To say, if possible, we prefer to see. I'm having a hard time with what I perceive as a little wishy-washy. I myself don't know. I mean, I think, well, first of all, I think coming out on that main drag is a problem to start off with, under the best of circumstances. If there was no snow, we could have driving rain, we could have any number of things. But to me, it's a dangerous situation from the get-go. So I would like to see something definitive that says, yes, this is safe, no, it's not, as opposed to if you, and yes, that'll be okay, and we maybe recommend this. You know, I'm sorry to be so picky, but
No, we
that's
should.
where I'm coming from. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Ashley's putting up a letter right now. I think everybody should be able to see it. She's sharing it with us. Ashley, what are you trying to show us here?
Oh, so I just got screen sharing back from IT. I have the letter that I was reading off of from Paul Barry, and I have the letter from Carl, and I also have, I believe these all got emailed to you, but I do have the renderings that were provided for the project that I can go through if you'd like.
I'd like to be able to read it. You just flashed it on quickly here.
Yes.
Sorry.
What it says,
Okay.
not just flash it on.
I was showing you what I had, so
I'd like to read it
Okay, and that was submitted today. So
today and getting it. Yeah.
So let me just ask: are there any abutters or neighbors here to comment on this project on Main Street?
See this.
Okay. Nobody? I did see somebody who I believe was in a butter, but they don't have to say anything if they don't want to.
This is so weird.
Can I jump in here again on this, John, just for 1 minute?
Yep.
This is what I mean when I'm reading this. Where required, approved signs, roadway, yada, yada, yada. We recommend the language. Whenever possible, we prefer to see a turning option that doesn't require da, 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 da. See, that to me, that's not giving us a yes, it's okay, and no, it's not. We prefer this. We have no guarantee on this board that what the fire department perceives as okay if. See, you see where I'm coming from? It's the same thing.
Okay, so we want further clarification, and that's fine. I think that makes sense. And I'm not comfortable with it at this point. And you know, again, if there's I don't know. I think we have somebody. Yeah, I think one of the neighbors is there, but you know, again, if you want to say something or have questions about this, that's great. Ashley, do you know what is the next date available? The 27th? Is that all we've got?
So I think you meet every first and third Wednesday normally.
Yeah, I mean,
So your next normal, but your next
July, we do one.
scheduled hearing would be, yeah, so we're getting the summer schedule, which I've not been here for, so I'm not sure what your process is for July.
Mr. Chairman, if I may interject here,
Yes.
the fire department, as far as I read, said that this is acceptable under TMR 527, that the fire engine turnaround can have a 3-point turn, so it's a legal turnaround. They prefer to have, to drive around the building if they can. That's a preference. But, as far as the fire engine turnaround stuff, it seems he stated that himself, Paul Barry, in that letter, that it complies with the code and law and everything. Early on, back in February, we had a fire engine turnaround with permeable pavers. He had sent us an email. I'm not sure if I don't think he did official comments at the time, but he did send an email to us saying that he did not, or the fire department in general does not like permeable pavers for turnarounds. So we went ahead and accommodated that. It's just a preference that he had, and we went ahead and did whatever we could and actually made everything paved. And then we waited to hear a response, and you can ask Ashley and Amy. We sent out emails monthly and sometimes bi-weekly. We didn't get a response until 4 months later, after we already developed all of our plans and everything. And he asked if we could have basically the whole undercarriage of the fire engine would have to be paved, just so that they don't hit any snowbanks. So I had my guys work this weekend, because we only had 4 days here to fix this. And we made sure we accommodated the fire department in that sense. We went ahead and made the whole area paved for the fire apparatus to turn around. The whole thing is on pavement, the whole undercarriage. And he did okay it in that letter that we got today. And as far as the town engineer's comments, we did meet with the town engineer back in March, late March, I think it was, before our last hearing that was supposed to be in town hall. Excuse me. And we addressed all their concerns about slopes and so forth. We've already been approved with the Conservation Commission for the drainage and so forth. And both the letters of the town engineer and the fire department, Paul Barry, they both say we did what they asked us to do, and they're all set.
Okay.
I mean, we've gone out of our way to make sure that everybody is happy. Whatever we could do, we did, even though it wasn't code or wasn't required by law. We went ahead and did it regardless, just to make sure that everybody was happy. And like I told you from the onset, I just want to make sure everybody's happy with the project. And we've gotten okays from both those departments and the conservation department.
Okay. Bob, any thoughts or comments on this?
Yeah, I was able to read the comments, and it does seem to me that I hear what Jane is saying in terms of there being certain recommendations. My thinking was we could, if we were inclined to vote on this tonight, we could take those recommendations and discuss whether those should be binding conditions in our decision, so that we can decide whether, if we're not comfortable with just stating a preference, but actually requiring what to the extent it's feasible to do it, what the fire chief is asking for, then we could consider conditioning the project that way. But so that was my thought on the two letters that we're talking about.
And we did a bunch of changes and looked into a bunch of stuff that the board requested us to do from our last meeting. We put together a presentation for that. We had 3D renderings done so you guys can see details of the building and so forth. We have the site plan, the updated site plan, and it will reflect where the fire engine can turn around now and the changes that we did to accommodate them, and the changes that he's okaying pretty much in that letter. But in short, I mean, the fire engine turns around completely on pavement. The undercarriage doesn't see any pavers or any lawn or anything like that. We're not going to have issues with snow anymore with the new design that he okayed.
Yeah,
That's the site plan right there. Yeah.
Yeah, I still go back to, this is a 3/4 acre site with 16 units and retail on the bottom. This is a jammed in project, and I just want to make sure that we're not missing anything. Suzanne, your comments?
I just have a few questions. The plan looks a little different to me. Where the handicap spot was originally, I thought was closer to the highway, but I think it's further back now. Are we putting any pilings in front of these parking spaces so that the vehicles don't go into the building?
On the site plan, we don't have any pilings there, I don't believe, but that's a sidewalk with, I believe it's about a 6 or 10 inch curb. The cars wouldn't be able to make it in, but there is protection there against the building if someone parked there.
What is just the curbing is your protection?
Yeah.
And it's how many inches? Is it granite?
Yeah, I believe it's granite. We could have the engineer chime in.
It's a 6 inch granite curb.
Yep.
6 inch? And,
Yep.
and you think that prevents vehicles? Because I don't think so.
That's standard design, and we typically wouldn't design anything, more than that than the curb reveal.
I'm just looking safety because the state is looking into, requiring pylons now because there's been so many of these vehicles going into buildings with curbs.
Yep.
And my other question is, I have inquired about guest parking. I have an apartment upstairs. I want to have my girlfriends over for lunch. Where do they park?
Well, we have above the surface parking, and we have the parking garage below. We can assign parking spaces based on what kind of tenants we have, but the zoning doesn't require a labeled parking space for a visitor. That's something that would go back under management and would have to see, the volume of tenants we have, how many cars they have, and so forth, and then we could, based on that, designate if we feel the need is there to go ahead and put a visitor parking. But the zoning bylaw doesn't require that at all.
Well, I can require it. We can require it for safety purposes, whether the bylaw says it or not. If people need to come in there, I assume they're not going to be as a guest to be able to get out into the cellar, to the garage.
I don't know. All I can tell you is I follow the zoning bylaw down to the T. There's no mention of visitor parking at all in the whole zoning bylaw.
Well, I'm asking. So the answer is you have none designated right now. Is that correct?
Yeah, we don't have any designated because they're not required to be designated.
Okay. I require them, so that's where I stand.
And Suzanne, because it's a site plan, you can, the zoning board.
I can send it forth to the planning board. Gotcha.
Yeah.
And my last and final question is, when we looked at the back of the building last meeting, to make it not look so prison-like, you were going to dress it up a bit, if I was correct?
Yeah, we have a landscape design that's already been done, and we went ahead and had a rush order on 3D renderings that we have to present tonight. If you guys want to go through the PowerPoint, we have about 15 pictures of different angles that'll give you a pretty clear picture of what the building's going to look like when it's done.
I just want to know where the Amazon trucks are delivering the packages. Once again,
the Amazon trucks generally these days are just a big Mercedes van, and
you're gonna have 30. You could have 30 people living up there, all ordering away all day long. So I mean,
that's true. Nowadays, that's true. Everything comes through Amazon.
Because they have to pull out into a highway. Yeah. I don't know about stealing the packages. I want to know where. I mean, we're here for safety.
Yeah, we have a lobby for the residential units, and the inside part of the L. If we go through the plans, we'll be able to show you that. And they could leave the boxes in there, and only the residents would have access to them, just like the mail or anything that's being delivered. And again, the Amazon delivery trucks, you've been seeing them a lot lately with everything going on, and they're just a standard van. It's not anything big that would take up a lot of space. We just need a parking space if they needed to.
And there's gonna be room for that thing to pull up, 4 or 5 times a day and.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we have 18
I just
parking
didn't see where the
spaces.
area was.
Yeah, we have 18 parking spaces above grade that can be used for all that stuff.
And the businesses require how many spots?
The business is 9,000 square feet would require 18. It's every 500 square feet requires one parking.
So you have no extra.
Well, as far as the zoning bylaw requires us to give the bare minimum on mixed-use buildings.
Okay, thank you for telling me my law. Thank you. I'm all set.
Okay, Suzanne, let's have him walk us through, can you show us these 3D renderings that you have?
Yes, so this is the entry, this is Main Street right here from the right side of the building. You can see that the first floor is a little wider than the second and third floor. Again, we have about, I believe it's 8,700 square feet gross commercial leasable area. And we'll get into the details of the ground floor because I know Bob asked about that. We have slides for that. And you can see the second and third floor of the residential units. If you want to go to the next slide, Ashley, please. So this is the left side of the building. You see the storefronts in the front, the walkways. We can go to the next slide if you'd like. And again, this is more to the left, so we're going towards the floral shop, the Dunkin' Donuts parking lot. And I know there was a concern, I'm not sure if it was Bob or someone else who asked about softening the look of the building from next door. They asked if we could put in some storefronts and so forth, so that's not just a stone wall or concrete wall there. We did have the landscape architects come up with these drawings so that they show you exactly what we're planting there. And that's part of our landscape design. You can see the shrubs on the side. They're pretty tall. They cover up the building. We also incorporated 3 storefront windows on the side of the building there. You might get a better look at them as we go through these slides. Next slide, please. So this is if you are driving into the driveway, going to the above ground parking. And again, you see the sidewalk on the side, and everything that you see as far as landscape goes, that's exactly what we're going to be planting there. So parking is going to be on the right-hand side and on the left-hand side. Next slide, please. So this is a angle from, excuse me?
Nothing, I'm just looking at the dangerous situation with that white car bashing in through the window. That's all. Other than that.
This is like from the car wash side, if you're looking at it. You see the handicap spot. That's a van accessible handicap spot right there. And again, these 2 storefronts you see to the far right, those are where the retail or offices might be. Excuse me. Next slide, please. So this is the back corner of the property. Again, we're just walking around the building to give you the different angles. In the inside part of that L, in that corner, that's the entrance to your lobby. So, they could deliver packages and leave them in there, and only the residents have access to them, just like the mail, the postal service would drop off mail there too.
Which door are you talking about, Saeed?
Right in the inside of the L.
Gotcha.
Not that one. Actually, yeah, that one. Yeah, I don't know if
So
you can see the hand on there.
So the truck cannot block the handicap spot at all?
No, the truck wouldn't have to park there. The truck could park anywhere if they have to. Any of those park spaces that are available, they can park in. Like I said, especially Amazon, most delivery vehicles today can park in those parking spaces. They're about 19 feet or 20 feet long, so it's a standard parking space. They can get in there. Next slide, please. So this is the far back corner, looking again at the building. You can see this is the hammerhead turnaround that we did for the fire department. This is where it would turn around. And then you can see the lampposts, all the lights directed in. We have that all developed for site plan review. There's really no light spillage over into the lots around us. Next slide, please. So this is from the Dunkin' Donuts side. If you're looking at, you can see it, we incorporated all the shrubbery that we have for in the landscape design. And towards the front, you can see those 3 storefront windows that we put in. They're faintly behind those shrubs, but we're not required to do any buffering when we abut a business zone, but we went ahead and incorporated that just to soften the look and from the feedback we got from last meeting. Next slide, please. So this is the front of the building if you're across the street in the driveway at the Bristol Cafe. Next slide, please. And again, this is from the Dunkin' Donuts side, and you get a clearer picture there, those storefront windows that we put in. There should be 3 in total. Next slide, please. This is a close-up look for that entryway, for the lobby, and the 2 storefronts on the side. There's about, I think, I believe that sidewalk's about 4 or 5 feet wide. We can see that on the site plan. Next slide, please. And this is just a view from the balcony of the corner apartment. And you can see how nice the landscape is. It really softens the curb appeal and everything. And we do have some land behind there. Yeah.
So are the people going to go from like to the left of this little white car and walk back, and that's their use of trash removal?
Yeah, that's the trash removal in the back at the dumpster area.
Okay.
Try to push it back as far back into the property as possible, and it also allows the trash removal truck to get in there and grab it and not bother any of the parking spaces.
Yep.
All right, next slide, please. And again, I made sure they gave us enough pictures that we can really get an idea of what it looks like. This is from the car wash side. Like if you're at the vacuums that are there, you can see the plantings there. They really soften the parking area. We try to make sure that you really can't see any cars from the street, and those will help shade the cars will end up being behind the plantings and all that. So you really wouldn't be able to see much of them from the street. I know we're trying to encourage that as much as possible through site plan review. Next slide, please. And again, this is the driveway. Just giving you another angle. Next slide, please. Okay, so now this is the site plan. And I'll show you with another slide how the fire engine will actually turn around. We updated this for the deputy fire chief to make sure that we incorporated his request for the fire engine to be completely over pavement. The back end, the hammerhead, just got a little bit bigger, and I'll show you that I believe before the last slide we'll have that. Next slide, please. I know Bob was asking about this, or actually asked us also to go ahead and shade the area on the ground floor that's being used like for the hallways and so forth for the residential units. So all the shaded area is for the staircases, the elevator, and the lobby for the residential units above. And we have on the ground floor, Bob was asking about this, make sure the ground floor square footage, total square footage gross, is 11,174. The allowed use, I believe the allowed amount is 12,996. So I think we're about 2,000 below. Next slide, please. And then these are the second and third floor apartment layouts that we've seen before, but we made sure that we got the total square footage. For the second floor, it's 10,120. In the third floor is a mirror image. It's another 10,120. So they're about 1,100, 1,000 and change smaller than the ground floor. Next slide, please. So this is the updated fire engine turnaround to respond to the comments of the deputy fire chief. You'll see that the red outline is the complete fire truck. You can see the axles, has a dual axle on the back and front axle on the front. The entire fire engine is over pavement as requested. And that's the 3-point turn that he's talking about that's okayed. And what else can I add on this one? And we'll make sure that snow's removed off and between the peninsulas that he requested. That's just going to be part of the plowing regardless. We'll have to make sure those are clear either way. So we can definitely do that. The next slide, please. Okay, so this is, I just put the aerial view back in there. I know, Mr. Chairman, you had a question if we could look into a crosswalk at the location to go to the Bristol Cafe. We put a lot of effort into it and trying to see what we could do. We spoke to the DOT, as you know, it's their highway, and they gave us some feedback. I'm just going to ask if Kevin can give us the information that they told us, and we'll just keep that slide up because I think it best helps you see what he's going to describe. Take it over, Kevin, please.
Okay, thanks, Ed. Again, my name is Kevin Riopel. I'm with DGT Associates, the civil engineer with the project. We did reach out to DOT to explore a potential crosswalk from what would be the middle of the property to go across the street. A couple of issues with that. DOT recognizes the speed and the passing zone. Those would probably be some of the biggest needs to overcome. It wouldn't just be simple signage. It would have to be reflective beacons, automated push buttons with audio visuals, which would ultimately be owned and maintained by the town of Walpole. The other issue is that there's no pedestrian continuity on the opposite side of Main Street from us. There's no sidewalks along the commercial plazas there. So it wouldn't just be putting a crosswalk from our side across the street onto the other side of Main Street. There would have to be a larger study done, and DOT recognizes that you know, there's nowhere to receive the crosswalk on the opposite side of the street currently. And they did express that there may be potentially better options along Main Street, maybe further to the south to connect more towards the middle of the commercial plaza, more from, say, the Dunkin' Donuts and the flower shop. Where our site is in relation to the commercial plaza is right at their entrance and exit. And the way it lays out, we wouldn't be able to put a crosswalk at a 90-degree angle across the street. It would have to be at a very awkward angle, and that's something that DOT really wouldn't want in this instance. But again, DOT didn't shut the door completely to the crosswalk idea. It's just, it's going to take a lot of study. It would be, you know, a much larger project and involve, you know, more parties. So,
Thank you, Kevin.
welcome.
So that's pretty much it. I'm not sure if the board members have questions, or Suzanne, if you have any questions pertaining to that. Yeah, we did look into it. I thought it was a great idea. Honestly, I really pushed for it, but like Kevin's saying, the DOT saying, you know, the opposite side just doesn't have a sidewalk. If it was there, it would have made things a lot easier, but it's just not possible within our realm, at least.
Okay, thank you. I've got a few questions for you. Can you go back to the first picture showing the grade of the driveway? I know this is going up.
This one?
Yeah, that's fine. What's the grade of this driveway from Main Street going up to the higher level?
The driveway to the surface parking area
Yes.
is 6%.
Okay. That's quite a significant grade for this. And one of the things that concerns me is these schematics are really nice and they look great. I know that when it's actually built out, it doesn't always look like this. And one of the things is that the parking is significantly higher on the right-hand side because it also dips down, and you're showing that somewhat here with the cars going down. The grade going down is what percent?
Into the garage is a 12% driveway.
12%, okay. So that was one of my concerns, and again, I recognize these are schematics. They're pretty pictures, they're nice. It's a 6-foot sideline, and when you look at the landscaping that you have there, you've got it shows it as the the trees and then some grass. Well, the reality of 6 feet, that's a wingspan, and we're really talking, you're gonna have the trees there. There's not gonna be any grass. There's no room for it. Because my third point was that I come back to, it's a 3/4 acre site, and this is a huge amount of activity on a small piece of property. Next point, and we could do this as a condition. You mentioned the lights not shedding onto other properties. Drew, Drew Delaney, night sky? What is the term they use for the lights?
Just promoting dark skies usually.
Dark sky. Okay, dark skies, and this, Drew, are there specific standards with that?
Yeah, I'm sure it would matter on the zoning or area that's in, whether it's just business or not, you know, what different light emissions they would want from the property.
Okay, but again, we could do that as a condition that it would meet the dark skies, you know, requirements. That's just so that we don't have light shedding off the property. The other one, and I'm sure the fire chief is concerned about this, no parking in the Hammerhead turnaround. How, besides signage, is there any other way, I guess, lines and stuff, but that's something that Saeed, how would you address that?
I mean, we can, if you're concerned about like tenants and so forth, we can definitely incorporate that into their lease, that they're not allowed to park there at any time. I would definitely add the signage just in case someone's visiting for business and they're not familiar with the site, so that they understand that they can't park there. We could, you know, do it on the ground, like I've seen in many places. Just write it down on the ground. But signage is definitely important there, just for people that are not familiar with the building. As far as the tenants go, we can definitely incorporate that into their lease agreements and so forth, that they're not to use that area.
Okay. And the final one was, I do appreciate the work that you guys did on the crosswalk. I see here you show a sidewalk on Main Street. Would that still be part of the plan, even though it's a sidewalk that really goes to nowhere? But I'm thinking in the future, if we start tying in these properties, particularly as they get developed and improved, as you're doing with Leo's Pizza here, you know, I want to make sure that that's addressed. That, you know, would you have the sidewalk? Would that be included?
What is actually the question? The sidewalk that's there, will it stay there, or will?
Yeah, right now, if I'm looking at the picture on the screen, yeah, it shows a person standing on a little sidewalk, yeah, right there. Is that part of your plan?
Oh yeah, definitely. Okay.
Just to chime in on that, that sidewalk has to be reviewed by DOT as part of their standard access permit, just to maintain ADA compliance all the way to and through the site. So it's all designed for that at this point, so yes.
So we'd expect, even though it's a small piece of sidewalk, it would be there?
Yes, for sure.
Sidewalks have to start somewhere, right? So we can add on.
No, that's what we're looking to the future on all this. Okay, so those were my five comments, and if you know, those could all be incorporated into part of a decision if we choose to go that route. Okay, anybody else? Any other board members? Any comments?
I got a quick one. Syed, is this going to be no pets in this building?
We haven't decided that yet, but I don't know if we would restrict having, you know, no pets there. Just considering the size of the apartments, they're 1,100 square feet, so I don't believe we're gonna restrict it. But it depends what type of pet. Obviously, if it's a cat, we're obviously okay with that. But that's something we'll definitely look into.
A dog person, Syed.
You'd be surprised what kind of pets people have these days.
No gators. I just didn't know if there was going to be a dog area and who was going to clean it and that kind of things. That's what I was getting.
We actually, that did come up in the Conservation Commission hearing, and they were saying that you know, we have to keep the back area clean if anybody goes to the backyard. And they also, just as a side note, just to let you guys know what they told us, they want us to put no alteration plaques in the back corner at the 25-foot buffer zone. We actually updated the site plan to incorporate that so that they're there if any, so that everyone can see. And again, as a side note, to fill you in quickly on what they said, they were very pleased with it, because right now, as the property sits, there is no drainage at all. Everything just dumps right out onto Main Street, uncontrolled, unfiltered. So they were very happy. And I'm not overstating it. If you want to look back at our hearing, it was very good. I was very pleased. And the DOT also was very happy because we're filtering pretty much all the water on site. And the way it is right now, everything goes out into the drains and ends up in the wetlands unfiltered. So it's a major improvement in that sense as far as drainage goes. Everybody we've spoken to about that is really happy.
Thanks.
And just a question, will there be a property manager on site, or will you have a property manager that can be contacted by the town in the event that there is, let's say, somebody parking where they shouldn't or whatever?
Yeah, there'll definitely be plaques on the building, as we do all the time, just with property management information, the property management company, and telephone numbers and so forth. Obviously, all the tenants will have that information if they need anything, but for the public, there will be a plaque or something on the building near the entrances that says who manages the building and the contact information, and we wouldn't mind putting that in as a condition if you'd like.
Thank you.
Yeah, Bob kind of stole my thunder about the property maintenance. That was definitely a concern where Chief Barry had, recommended the snow removal out of the back, and myself and other board members have expressed their concern with the snow building up with the ramp going down to the parking area. I'd definitely like to see some sort of plan or something established by yourself and your team as to how you're going to mitigate that and make sure that any people that would live in those residents would be safe from, snow buildup or anything else. The other question I had was, at last meeting, the chairman had asked you if there was any thought given to lower income opportunities or anything in that nature to any of your properties. Have you had time to think about that or draw any conclusions?
Yeah, I did put some thought into it. Unfortunately, we started off at a bigger building at 18 units. Actually, it was more like 20, but we ended up where we are to make sure that we're keeping everyone happy and able to respond to all the comments. By reducing it down to 16 units, it makes it difficult to get it off the ground. With that said, I wouldn't be able to do the affordable units, unfortunately, but I'll try and make it up to you guys in the future with a different project. It's been a pleasure working with Walpole. So I'm hoping this is not the last project we have, but I'll definitely incorporate that in another project. Unfortunately, this one, it's going to be difficult. The numbers are very tight. But yeah, I hope that answers your question. I wish I could. At 18 units, yeah, we could have potentially done it. At 16, it's very tight.
Okay. And then the last thing is your renderings don't show the billboard. And I'm just wondering, do you have, we talked about the light or the photometrics of the site. I don't know if you have exterior lighting on the proposed building along with the billboard. I don't know if that could become a potential inconvenience for your residents or said abutters, but have you given any thought to that, or do you have any, information to bring regarding that?
Yeah, as far as the lighting goes, the landscape engineer already had that done for us. There, you can see the light right there on the right-hand side of the screen. It goes straight down. I believe it has shields on the back end to not let light spill over into the parking lot next door. As far as I know, the numbers that I saw, there's it's pretty much at zero spillage all the way around the property. with a couple of spots at 0.01 spillage. It's not worth even mentioning, honestly, as far as spillages. There's really none from what they've shown us on the lighting plan. They're all pointed down so that the residents wouldn't get too much light on the second and third floor. Those are, I believe, 10 feet tall. So it's mainly focused on the parking lot, just the area that we want to light up. On the building itself, there's lighting. You can see those little squares on top of the windows, on top of the doors. I believe those are also pointing down as well, just to light the sidewalks. So we took extra care to make sure that no spillages going over into the neighboring lots.
I appreciate it, Saeed. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Hey, following up on what Drew said about the billboard, yes, we did talk about that last time. Did you find out when you said that there's a current contract on that billboard? Yeah. Because do you know when that contract expires?
They have a confidentiality clause in it. Needless to say, the first opportunity we get is a 10-year. So if we vote favorably on this tonight, and going back to what Drew was saying, why is the billboard not there? I know, Mr. Chairman, you don't want to see the billboard there, so it's not in there in those renderings, because I would like to have it removed if it pleases the board once it expires, once our first opportunity to get out of it comes up. The wording on that would have to be, just because there's a confidentiality clause, I really can't discuss the terms on their agreement, but we could have it removed no later than 12/31/2029. They just signed something with them, unfortunately, but that's the best we can do on that one. And we're okay with having that as a condition of approval. But that would be the date, pretty much, that the first window of opportunity that we can have, that I can safely say we can remove that.
Okay, that's moving in the right direction.
Can you show on the renderings where the billboard would be? I mean, is it in the way of executing on the project, or where would it?
It's on the, if we can try and get an angle of the right side setback. Yeah, go back, Ashley. One more back. Yeah, to the far right of that screen, it's 25 feet back, and our setback is 25 feet, and it's right on the lot line, literally on the lot line. So to the right of the screen is where it would be. And we're all in agreement it's an eyesore, so.
Okay. Jane, I know you've got concerns about this. What are your thoughts? We've talked it over a little bit. Still get those same concerns?
Well, to be honest with you, I think Saeed's done a great job. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Trying to please everybody. If everyone who came before us was this, was this thorough, it would be a pleasure.
Thanks.
I have to say, have concerns about the size of this lot with what's going on there. I'm struggling within myself to try to reconcile it. I still think there's a lot of concerns with the traffic coming in and out of there. And I think we could chuckle over Suzanne's concerned about the guest parking and the Amazon, but the eye of a storm can be when all of these things happen at the same time, and there's a snowstorm, and I do worry about that. But that's something I just have to grapple with. But I do feel as though you've gone over with trying to be accommodating and meet everyone.
Thank you, Jane.
As Suzanne has alluded to, though, you've done every single thing, it would seem, to meet the zoning requirements, but as Suzanne said, there are some things over and above that the board would have you to say, put certain conditions. But
and we can condition it, Jane. With, Suzanne, if you're concerned, we can say that, besides the 6-inch granite curb, which the applicant has said is going to be there, some bollards put in to protect the storefront. Those are conditions that we can put in. And hopefully, Saeed, would you be able to make those conditions work if they were in there?
I'm sorry, can I make a suggestion as Lucio Trabuco Architects?
Yeah.
Instead of bollard, which I don't think it's appealing in a retail or residential area, why can we do like tire stops? There are concrete that we can put along the edge of the parking, so that the wheel's gonna have a hard time going over that, and also the sidewalk as well. Instead of putting bollards.
Okay.
Bollards all along that is gonna, in my opinion, is gonna be a ugly option.
Okay. I think I'm trying to address the concerns safety-wise on this for the special permit. So.
No, I'm not disagreeing with you, but I'm just saying an alternative would be like like wheel stop along the parking spaces.
Okay.
Basically, if it jumped the tire stop, it would grab the undercarriage of the car and not let it go forward.
Yeah.
Ideally, that's the
Stuck
concept.
between the sidewalk, the curb, and the wheel stop, basically.
Okay. I just made a note of that. So. That's number 7 for me. So. Okay. Anybody else have anything? Last call for butters.
I'm good.
So,
I just, Chairman Lee, I looked up the 2019 ZBA date, and you met right in the middle of July. So if you wanted to have your next meeting be July 15th for this case, that gives us a few weeks, and if it's appropriate, we can put together a draft of conditions as you've discussed, and circulate that to you ahead of the meeting.
I think that would be best. I think that would accommodate Jane's concerns, Suzanne's, safety issues that I think are good. I want to see the things that I mentioned, including a time for the billboard, all these things. Let's do it right. This project has gone pretty smoothly so far, and I just want to make sure that in the future people don't drive down Main Street and say, "Oh, that's the COVID building," because it got through when everybody was, not paying attention to things, and we want to make sure this is good. So I'd actually be very comfortable with continuing out until July 15th with the intent, actually, of having a draft decision for the board at that point.
And to be fair, this project was started well before COVID, and so the public had a lot of opportunity to come to your meeting. So I just want to make that clear that folks had the chance to come into the hearing rooms, and nobody came. I think there was one letter, just to note for the record. But yes, we can certainly get a draft decision going and get it to you. So if we got it to you Wednesday, July 8th, would that give folks enough time to look it over?
Yep, I think that would be good. Jane, you good with that?
Say it again. Yes, I'm fine with it. That's good.
Okay. Bob and Drew?
Sounds good.
Okay.
Fine with me.
Okay, let's do that. And so what we'll do is the plan is to have a draft decision by July 8th for the board to review, and then we will actually have the meeting. And my expectation is that at that point, unless there's something shocking, we should be able to move forward at that point. But it'll be helpful to having a draft decision. And Saeed, by keeping the hearing open, that means you also can go, if, let's just say my early recommendation about the bollards, if your architect said, "Oh, that's not a good idea," then you can have a discussion with Ashley, and we can get that resolved so that we don't close the hearing, and you still have some give and take in this process.
I think it's wise to keep it open, just for the sake of getting all the details down, the wording down perfect, so that obviously we can't come up with that right now. So the time is actually good just to make sure that we do it right and get all the, all the points down perfect. And obviously I don't want to commit to some stuff that I can't, fulfill. So we're going to have to go back and forth. Ashley and Amy can stay in touch as they draft put the draft together. And I'll make sure that we can, fulfill those conditions just so that we don't have issues on July 15th. We can just move forward at that point. Okay.
And I do have one question on the grade. You said it's a 6% grade. So if the driveway is about 25 feet back, my calculation says we're only talking 1.5 foot rise.
Exactly.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So I thought it was a greater rise going up than 1.5 feet over 25.
No. From sidewalk to the high point, there is only about 1.5 feet.
Okay. That makes me feel.
Yeah, 6% sounds worse than it actually is.
Well, because it's a short distance, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And no skateboarding there.
No.
Right out to Main Street. Okay. Good. So, do you want to request to continue out until July 15th?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So at the request of the applicant, could I have a motion to continue out until July 15th, 7 o'clock? And that'll probably still be a Zoom meeting. Or Ashley, do you know where we'll be at that point?
So I talked to Amy Questle, our town council, because I said, can we start hearings for the 40Bs, starting in July? And she said we should wait till phase 3 rolls out, which she said is expected to be that last week of July. Okay. So the 15th might be too soon for an in-person meeting.
Okay, then.
Do we have any hesitations doing any final things during pandemic? Do we need to ask George that, or?
Yeah, we have George with us. George, what's your thoughts?
I mean, I don't want the 40Bs coming after us because of this, so I'm hesitant.
I'm not following, sorry. What do you mean?
Are we allowed to approve a project during the pandemic?
Oh, yes, you are. So just to summarize, the special legislation does not preclude you from issuing a decision for a permit. And as Ashley had pointed out earlier, I don't know anything about this particular application, but hearing Ashley earlier say that you've had a process on this ongoing for a while now, apparently, like pre-pandemic, that speaks in favor of, you take applications kind of case by case, but that would speak in favor of if you're kind of through the process and you're reasonably confident that, the public has been fully heard on it and noticed and an opportunity to come in, and you've had enough of a chance to do a really full substantive hearing on this and complete the process, then there's nothing to preclude you from going ahead and deciding the matter and issuing the permit during the state of emergency. The special legislation does allow for that when a board decides to do so, in its discretionary authority. For other matters, might be different. You may not want to initiate a full substantive hearing on sort of a newer matter or a more complex matter that hasn't been thoroughly vetted before the pandemic came. You might want to exercise your rights under the special legislation to continue things out until the state of emergency lifts. So I definitely think you have enough to distinguish the application before you if the board feels comfortable going ahead and attempting to decide it in a public hearing conducted by alternate means, such as the Zoom hearing that we're here for tonight.
Also, George, could you speak a little bit to the decisions and how there's a delay on the appeals to start ticking not the appeals, the 20-day period, that I believe that's also on pause during this time, right?
Yes, right. So then that's the other thing, is that you're not jeopardizing people's appeal rights in that if the state of emergency is still in effect. you're not harming their right to appeal something if they so choose.
So if we do approve this during Zoom, it will not affect any other hearings that are time sensitive.
What do you mean by affect the hearings? I'm not following that.
A set a precedent that we've approved something in a Zoom setting.
No, unless it's, you're treating a particular application that's, similarly situated to other ones, and you're treating that one differently and, not treating others. But you certainly have different circumstances per application before you, and the amount of hearings that you've conducted and the complexity and the completeness of your proceedings up till now. So it really, I'm not big on precedent. I am big on not violating people's civil rights and not singling out certain applications for disparate treatment for improper reasons or anything like that. That would be wrong. But I'm not into worrying about precedent. If you have a valid basis, good faith basis for going ahead and deciding it, this particular application, you should feel free to go ahead and do that.
Okay, thank you, George.
I made cookies to time we send them home with a half a dozen every day.
That sounds good. Okay, so at the request of the applicant, could I have a motion to continue until July 15th?
So moved at 7. So moved.
At 7 on Zoom, moved by Suzanne,
Second by Jane.
second by Jane, thank you. Any further discussion on that? Okay, all those in favor, again, this is a roll call vote. All those, first, Murphy,
Aye.
Bob. Aye. Drew Delaney,
Aye.
Jane Coffey,
Aye.
and John Lee, aye. So that is continued until July 15th. Good. Next,
Guys, thank you.
next we have, and I think we have Brian from Signorama. Is that, Brian, you still with us?
Yep, still here.
Okay, we tried to take you first thing, just so you know, I tried to get you done first thing, but you weren't here. So now we're going to go back to you. Thank you for joining us. This is case number 0420 103 Providence Highway, the old bowling alley, car dealership. Now it's going to be urgent care, and this is for a sign. Tell us where you're at with this, please, Brian.
Well, after we went through everything last meeting, you wanted to continue it to see if there were any objections to having the electronic digital board up there.
Yeah. And don't think there's any problems. And as I went by, it seems like the sign is up there. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Yeah. And you built that at your own risk, and I don't see a problem with it. You did say that.
Well, it wasn't at my risk.
Yeah, okay.
The owner went ahead and instructed us to proceed with it. He's trying to get it open as quickly as he can, and that's one of the last things that he needed to do is get a sign up.
Yeah. And I know you had said you were trying for June 1st opening. June 1st has come and gone. I don't think they're open as of 2 days ago when I went by, but.
No, not yet. He's run into a few delays.
Yeah. So, not because of the sign. So on that note, I think that, I'm comfortable with it. There's no issues that I see at this point. Board members, do you have any concerns on this?
No.
Any comments from you as economic development?
I would just add, so the goal of continuing was to give folks who are watching online a chance to call us or write you a letter, and I've not heard any public comment on the sign, so we're all set.
John, just a quick reminder, it's a 4-man board.
Okay, why, are you off this one, Suzanne?
Jane is.
Jane is, okay. And, Brian, just be aware, it's a 4-person board, but I don't think that's going to change the outcome here, but you should be aware of that. Okay, any final comments on the sign for Providence Highway, the new urgent care center? Okay, Brian, do you want to close this hearing?
Yes.
Okay, at the request of the applicant, we will take a roll call vote to close the hearing. Actually, do I need to have a motion to? Yeah, I need to have a motion. Could I have a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Moved by Suzanne.
Second.
Second by Drew. Okay, any further discussion on this? Is just to close the hearing. Roll call vote to close the hearing. Jane Coffey.
No. Abstain, or whatever she is.
Right, you're right. I'm looking at, yeah. Sorry, Suzanne.
Murphy, yes. Aye.
Bob Fitzgerald. Drew Delaney.
Aye.
John Lee, aye. Okay, we voted to close the hearing. Now, all those in, could I have a motion to permit this electronic message center under section 7.68.4 at 103 Providence Highway, standard conditions in the decision, and that is it. I think the applicant already talked about the lights would be dimmed at certain times, and that was all part of the proposal.
And we're gonna use the conditions from that last hearing that he did use the dimming and all
Yes.
that. Okay.
Yes, it does, yes.
Okay.
And do we have a plan to reference in the decision as well, or?
Yes, there's a plan. Yeah, there's a plan that's been filed with the ZBA. We saw this was early on.
Right.
Ashley, do you have any comments or questions on this? Okay, so with the standard conditions and the conditions that the applicant set forward as far as the lighting and the timing and all that, that would be good. Okay, roll call vote. Murphy.
Aye.
Bob Fitzgerald.
Aye.
Drew Delaney.
Aye.
And John Lee, aye. So 4-0-0 carries. Okay, sorry that you had to stick around, Brian, but we tried to take you first.
Thank you, I appreciate your time.
Hey, good night, good night, guys. Now, next thing we have some other business. Discussion item, 40A fee schedule. Ashley put this together and put it out. Any comments on that, Ashley?
Nope, we can kick that to July 7th, or the next July meeting when we have time.
Okay. And I see we have on here, discussion with applicant regarding Burns Avenue 40B. Ashley, what's this about?
So the applicant, Lou Pedrosi, is here. He would like to address the board about kind of procedurally moving forward right now. And George, please chime in if I'm misstating any of these things. Right now, it's the Burns Ave version 1.0 is at the HAC. There are some conditions in that decision that the applicant feels are unrelated to Burns Avenue version 2.0. We've not opened Burns Avenue 2.0, and I think the applicant would also like to ask for you to schedule a hearing date for that. We told the applicant that we would put this on the agenda just to create some transparency in how these decisions on moving forward with these requests are being made. Certainly, it's this board's decision, and input is what's being asked for. And George, I don't know, is there something, I feel like I'm missing something important. So if you could.
Sure. I don't think you're missing anything. The board has its original permit decision for the Burns Ave 40B. That is on appeal to the Housing Appeals Committee, and that appeal has been stayed with the notice of project change that was filed. And, the board made the determination that the which means that you have a public hearing on that, and then do a public hearing and issue a decision the way you would any normal comprehensive permit before you. When you made the determination of substantial change, you declined under the special legislation to schedule a public hearing on the notice of project change. And you indicated at that publicly noticed meeting that you would schedule the public hearing within 45 days of the termination of the state of emergency, which you're entitled to do under the special legislation for COVID. So that's where you stand procedurally on both of those matters. The applicant, Mr. Petrosi, he was desirous of seeking to resolve disputed conditions from the original permit decision, which he says, as Ashley noted, would not be resolved no matter what the decision was on the notice of project change. So he wanted to move forward on some type of discussion with you. Ashley, I had recommended to Ashley that, so the buck stops with me about why we're before you on this tonight. I started to feel very uncomfortable about relaying a petition over to the applicant on your behalf without actually bringing it before the board. So just so you know, procedurally, the applicant has filed a motion to lift the stay of the HAC appeal on the first project decision, saying that he wants to go forward with that appeal, for this reason, to try to resolve the dispute as to the conditions on the original permit decision, which he says will not be resolved on your decision of the notice of project change. I have filed an opposition to that motion to stay. That's not, in other words, if you have a notice of project change and it's found to be substantial, the procedure under the 40B regulations is for the board to go forward with a public hearing on the notice of project decision that they render. Then the applicant goes back to the HAC and the whole thing is opened up again, both the appeal of the original permit decision and the appeal of your decision on the notice of project change. I've respectfully agreed to disagree with the applicant on that issue, and the motion is pending before the HAC right now. And where I say that I was uncomfortable speaking on behalf of the board, it's with respect to this issue of the applicant's desire to seek a dialogue with the board to try to resolve the conditions on the original permit decision, which he believes he wants to go forward on and would not be resolved by the notice of project change. So rather than kind of put me and Ashley in the middle of it and make the decision on the board's behalf, I recommended that we just put an agenda item on before the board, and you can hear from the applicant yourself, and you can make the decision whether you want to have that dialogue with him. And that's where we're at. So if you have any questions or confusion, feel free to let me know and I can fill you in.
Okay, we'll start with my confusion first. George, it sounds like we really don't have to take any action on this because it's still in an appeal process, and we should just let that process run. Is that what you would recommend, or what do you recommend for the zoning board?
I think that his point is that he doesn't necessarily want to recommend on your behalf. I'm just jumping in here, George. That he would like some direction from the board as to, and maybe, should we continue to oppose moving forward with HAC? Part of initially when this came up, my issue is that when you have two versions of a project going on, it just creates too much mess, and we should just deal with the project before. So why negotiate on a project that we know is going to change? So that's part of my issue, is just process-wise. It doesn't make sense to me. And again, we thought that instead of making these decisions in town hall, putting it before you to have a dialogue to see how you felt about this, and perhaps hearing from the applicant where he's coming from, it is a better process. Does that cover it, George?
That's right. I would agree with that. I just wanted to put it before you, John, and the board to make the decision. I didn't want to stand between the applicant and you and create the perception that I was being obstructionist of, him desiring to have this dialogue with you. One other thing, though, I would note in addition to what Ashley said is, you've always, as a board, really wanted to err on the side of doing everything publicly, giving as much public input and ability to be heard as you can.
Yes.
One issue that concerns me a lot would be, as you had some pretty heavy opposition to the project, on decision number 1 before you issued the approval with conditions. And I would note that while the applicant filed an appeal of your decision, there was not an appeal filed in either Superior Court or the Land Court by anyone opposing the project, which is their right to do under Chapter 48, Section 17, a 4817 appeal of your decision. So it would concern me a little bit of you having any type of dialogue with respect to that initial permit decision, in light of the fact that, those who had expressed opposition to the project had obviously been happy enough with your decision that they did not go ahead and file an appeal of that, and they relied on that. So that just kind of gives one more factor here that, I was very uncomfortable, like I say, deciding for the board with the applicant and just standing in the way. And I'd rather you just make the decision as to whether you want to have that dialogue with the applicant.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, go ahead, Bob.
Oh, can you hear me? Okay. Just in terms of the process, I guess my concern is that it feels to me like effectively we're trying to determine what the conditions of the future decision will be or won't be, and to the extent we're deciding that one or another of these requested changes to our prior decision is appropriate or not. It strikes me that should be done in a public hearing setting, that there should be an opportunity for people to hear that discussion and to weigh in with their perspectives on it. And I'm also, some of the points of discussion, understandably, I appreciate the applicant trying to advance the discussion on some issues. But, some of the requests are, delete this in its entirety or simplify the parameters. There's going to have to be a more detailed discussion than just sort of a broad outline. And I don't want to get the board in a position of having it almost as though we're trying to settle, it kind of feels like we're trying to settle aspects of the appeal when that appeal is effectively stayed at this point. And as George said, we're going to be faced with essentially an entirely new process to evaluate the revisions to the project. And as we go through that process, we'll be able to determine whether prior conditions were appropriate or not. And we can have discussion about that and hear from the applicant and also anybody else from the public who might want to be heard on this. So I guess I share some of George's discomfort about engaging in a dialogue outside of the public hearing process.
Okay, I also would tend to agree with that, what you said, Bob, what George said, and also this is the appeals process. It's going through the appeals process, and to have it come back to us while it's still under appeal doesn't make procedural sense to me. But I think
John, just one other thing I wanted to know is, that motion is pending before the HAC, that the applicant has moved to lift the stay so that appeal can go forward. So that may, depending on the HAC's ruling on that motion, which we have opposed, that appeal may or may not continue to be stayed. It may go forward, but we don't have a decision on that as we're before you tonight. But the way that would happen, quite frankly, the applicant may disagree, and I don't mean this to be disrespectful, but I can't imagine the HAC ruling that the appeal, the original permit decision can go forward while there's a substantial notice of project change pending before the board. I think that would be an error of law. So I don't anticipate the HAC ruling in the applicant's favor on that, but that's just my opinion on it. But procedurally, where you stand is you have not yet opened the hearing on the notice of project change. There is a stayed appeal before the HAC with a pending motion from the applicant to lift that stay and go forward with the appeal.
And I guess I come back to the fact that if it's in the appeal process, let's let that process run and see how that works. Drew, any comments or thoughts on this?
No, not at this time, John.
And Suzanne?
I agree with Bob that it needs to be the public needs input on this.
Okay. And Jane?
I feel the same way as Bob and Suzanne. I think the public needs to have input on this.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Petrosi.
I think there's something missing here in the discussion. Obviously, we filed an appeal of the board's original decision, and it was Wall Street that requested the stay to work with the town on a alternative plan. And it was our understanding when we offered to stay the proceedings that we would be able to sit and mediate our disagreements on these other conditions without wasting the time of the Housing Appeals Committee. So it was our that we offered to stay the proceedings to save everybody time and money, and the Housing Appeals Committee to not have to go through that process. This is not something that came out of the blue. We requested it. Now, because we've known for a while that we're going to amend the project, and we weren't obviously expecting that the COVID-19 would throw a monkey wrench into the process. We were hoping that we would have a public hearing by now on the amended plan. So we can't be held hostage by our volunteering to have a stay in the proceedings to discuss these, what we would consider procedural type of conditions rather than substantive changes to the project. So we suggested that either that the board would schedule a hearing soon on the amended plan, or that we allow the Housing Appeals Committee to lift the stay so that the Housing Appeals Committee will make the final determination on these conditions. It was just our approach that these kinds of conditions would be better suited to be negotiated or mediated between the two parties rather than have an outside agency make the final decision. So the stay was requested in good faith. We think that we're going to make it a better project by the amended plans, but we don't want to be held hostage by not having a public hearing on the one hand and then having a stay that we volunteered for on the other hand. So we're just looking for a little bit of equal treatment, I guess, to have the process proceed in one way or the other.
Okay, well, that being said, it's in the appeal process, and I don't see any advantage for the town or particularly the neighbors that were part of the public hearing process. And in the sake of transparency, I wouldn't be in favor of entering into discussions as far as some of the items that that are part of the appeal that you want to address now. I think those will all be handled in the appeal with the Housing Appeals Committee. So.
Right, so why don't we have town council withdraw his motion, his opposition to the motion, and let the Housing Appeals Committee make the decision? Why are you opposing that lifting of the stay? If it was my volunteering request to have a stay, why can't I automatically request that the stay be lifted? Why are you opposing it?
Well, you requested it, so it's in there.
I understand it, but we, maybe town council and I were on a different set of mindset, but it was my understanding that when we agreed to the stay that we were going to engage in some conversation regarding the conditions that were under appeal and resolve those rather than have to go to the Housing Appeals Committee. I mean, it's to the advantage of the town not to have the Housing Appeals Committee make the decisions. So,
well, actually, it's to the advantage of the town to have transparency and a full public hearing of this process. And I think that's where we're at. And I feel comfortable, at least me personally, I don't speak for the board, letting it run its course. It's been stayed, and continue that path. And if you want to, request that the stay be lifted, you've already done that, and that's fine. And town council has offered their opinion on that.
So when will the board schedule a public hearing on this amended plan?
Do we have a full set of plans that have been submitted?
So we'll open it within 45 days of the state of emergency being lifted.
Yes, we have time.
So you're gonna exercise that to the maximum extent? Is that what I'm hearing, Mr. Chairman?
No, what you're hearing is that we're going to let the appeal run its course, and anything else will be done when public hearings can be done. We're going to do this with transparency and fairness to the people of Walpole.
Well, let me just explain the alternatives here, so that we understand.
Here we go.
If Wall Street were to withdraw its amendment,
okay, right now you said if you can do what you have to do, and I think the zoning board has just said, nobody's in favor of moving forward with this. We want to make sure it's done fairly and correctly.
well, you're not. I don't think you're handling it fairly and correctly. Why don't you have town council withdraw his opposition to the motion and have the Housing Appeals Committee proceed with the process? That's transparency.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, go ahead, Bob.
It seems to me that procedurally where we are is that either the applicant is going to proceed with his notice of project change and the amended project, and in which case the Housing Appeals Committee is not going to doesn't even know what decision is in front of it yet, because we haven't seen that project, we haven't voted on the project, we haven't conditioned the project. It's just to be determined through another public process. If the applicant chooses to withdraw that and renew the appeal of the prior decision, then we would be in a position to, either through an executive session where we talk with our town council and decide whether we want to negotiate a resolution or let that appeal process continue. So it's not, the board can't be put into the position of, it wasn't our decision to invite a modification to the project. That was the applicant's determination. And I think it was clearly and correctly decided that that was a substantial change to the project requiring further public review and a public hearing. And so we're proceeding on the assumption that the applicant's proceeding with that notice of project change. And I don't see any reason why we should be trying to integrate those two proceedings. We're either dealing with the notice of project change or we're dealing with the appeal, but we're not dealing with both at the same time. So to the extent that the applicant chooses to drop the notice of of project change and proceed with the appeal, then that would be the time to engage through town council whether we want to negotiate a resolution of specific conditions at that time. But until we know what project it is that we're negotiating over, I don't see any reason to start those discussions.
Okay, I think that clarifies. We've had the discussion, and you know, my view is, and I think what I'm hearing from the board is take no action on this. Town council, where's George? Do you have anything else to say on this?
No, I would re-clarify that if this is your decision that you still intend to open the public hearing on the notice of project change within 45 days of the termination of the state of emergency, if you choose to do that.
Yeah, I don't know whether I have to state that tonight, but yeah, that's what we would do because we have to do that.
Well,
Since it's on the agenda, you know, Burns Avenue, you know, I would just restate that because that's what you had decided to do before. When it was on your agenda before, you said clearly that you were going to open the public hearing within 45 days of the termination of the state of emergency. And as long as we're clear that that's still what you intend to do, because remember, the same thing I said before applies now. You still do have the discretionary authority to go ahead and open that hearing if you choose to. So I just wanted to clarify that with the board, that you, as opposed to picking a date to open the public hearing tonight, you're continuing to intend to open the public hearing within 45 days of the termination of the state of emergency.
That is the intent of the zoning board, to open up the public hearing at the within 45 days of the, you know, coming out of the COVID situation. That's the intent, and that meets the requirements of the law.
Great. And I just want to thank you, John, and the board tonight. I know, you know, it's difficult to have meetings under these circumstances, but I thought it was very important to just, you know, have that discussion with the applicant on the public record and publicly with you, because it's difficult, you know, when you have a municipal board as a client, I can't call my client and just get a quick answer to something. So this has been just, you know, a kind of a dispute running for a couple of months now. And I appreciate just being able to get clarity from the board directly to the applicant so that there's no confusion as to the board's position.
Okay. And George, just to make it clearer, would you recommend a roll call vote, or do you think what we've already stated is sufficient?
No, what you've stated is sufficient.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the only other thing, we had some minutes to review. We're not going to do that tonight. We don't have Ashley with us. And then, do any zoning board members have anything else for us? Okay, next time we'll meet will be July 15th. And I did check in. There's we're not being inundated with, I talked to Amy today, there's some applications coming in, but don't worry, when we come out of this, we're not going to be facing 45 cases. She says it's maybe 4 or 5 cases that are pending, that are in the queue. So I think that's important for us just to be aware of. So, okay, and unless anybody has anything else, thank you very much. Board members, anything?
Chairman, if I could add one last thing.
Yeah, please identify yourself for the record, Mark.
My name is Mark Rice, and I'm a resident on Summit Avenue in Walpole. I wanted to comment on the Doopy Street project. Is there going to be time to do that for public comment on July 27th?
That is the plan, and we have scheduled the hearing to be held at the Walpole High School auditorium, and the applicant will be presenting his information, and of course, residents of the neighborhood and the town, they can also be there for their comments and concerns. So that's what we're looking at, is
pending that phase 3 actually moves forward. That's the one caveat there with that. And then Mark, if you want to reach out to me at town hall, I'm happy to walk you through the process and let you know what to expect as we move forward.
Sure, that'd be great. Because I know I'm not alone in wanting to have
I've
some.
spoken with several folks in the neighborhood. So you can find our contact on the walpole-ma.gov website under community development.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay. Any other neighbors for any of the other that have procedural questions? We didn't take any evidence tonight, just procedural. Okay. Nobody has anything. That concludes tonight's Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Let's make a motion. Let's make a motion.
Oh, sorry, you're right, Suzanne. Could I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Suzanne, second by Jane. All those in favor? Roll call vote. Jane Coffey,
Yes.
Suzanne Murphy,
Aye.
Bob Fitzgerald,
Aye.
Drew Delaney,
Aye.
and John Lee, aye. Good night, everybody. Good
Night.
night, George.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ashley.
Thank you,
Thank you,
George.
George.
You're welcome. Good night.